Welcome to the Compliance 911 Show, a no-nonsense podcast discussing hot topics for today's busy compliance professional. It's everything you wanted to know about regulatory compliance, but we're afraid to ask. And now, here are your hosts, Dean Stockford of M&M Consulting and Len Suzio of GeoData Vision.
Hey, Dean. I can't believe we're almost halfway through the year as we're recording our 78th and 79th podcasts today in the middle of June. Where the heck does the time go? So what exciting topic do you bring to the group today?
Hi, Len, and I agree. Time is flying by, and I'm delighted we've been fortunate to continue our highly rated podcast. Today, I thought I would talk about something that has been on everybody's radar that concerns me greatly, and that is financial exploitation, elder abuse, and fraud.
Wow, those are great topics. And by the way, I have a 95-year-old mother who's still living, and I'm always worried about her and her, not only her physical well-being, but her financial well-being. And I certainly have heard a lot about this topic lately within banking circles. So I'm certain it's timely, and our listeners say will be very interested in what you have to say.
Sure. Well, let me start by disclosing I have elderly parents as well, so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've been involved in banking more specifically with BSA for greater than 35 years in this area, and the trends we're seeing hit me to the core. On April 18, 2024, FinCEN published statistics on elder exploitation. As defined, financial exploitation is the illegal or improper use of the older adult's funds, the property, or assets. The statistics are the second time over the 2 years that FinCEN has published the abuse advisory. These advisories are in addition to the notice published by the CFPB back in 2016 that recommended that financial institutions adopt procedures on how to recognize, prevent, report, and respond to financial exploitation of older Americans. As to the data, financial institutions reported over $27 billion in elder exploitation in just 1 year. So that was between June 15th of 2022 and June 15th of 2023. BSA suspicious activity reports filed used those key terms that they check off on that SAR, referenced in FinCEN's June 2022 guidance, or checked off the box that said elder financial exploitation. This trend's scary, Len. Very, very scary.
Yeah, boy, the statistics indeed are alarming. Do we know any of the specifics around the abuse, Dean?
No, unless you're a financial institution actually filing the SAR or law enforcement receiving, we're not really privy to the narrative information, which would be clear as to the circumstances that gave rise to the SAR. But FinCEN did indicate that elder abuse consists of two subcategories. Those two subcategories being elder scams, which are about 80% of the financial exploitation involved, the transfer of money to a stranger or imposter for a promised benefit that the older adult does not receive. As I always say, if it doesn't pass the sniff test, stay away from it. The second one was elder theft, and 20% of the elder scams involved trusted persons that are known by the adult that were stealing the adult's assets, funds, or income. Among additional conclusions, account takeover by a perpetrator unknown to the victim, such as adult children or somebody else that is related to him. Those are also of major concern. And in addition to the above FinCEN advisory, the April 30th, 2024 FBI report on elder fraud shows trends increasing at an alarming rate. And, the statistics in this report included scams targeting individuals that were aged 60 or above, and it caused over $3.4 billion in losses in just 2023. And that's an increase of approximately 11% from the prior year. Most costly scams were investment scams, followed by tech support type scams and business email compromise scams. And the most common scams that we saw were tech support scams, followed by personal data breaches, and of course, the too good to be true romance type scams.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot of them out there, but, I think we've all probably at some point have received, those fictitious robocalls that also are, could lead somebody into a scam or a potential scam. So they're out there, Len, and it's very, very scary.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned romance type scams. I happen to have a sister-in-law who was victimized by that, and
Ugh.
he convinced her to pony up over $50,000 of her retirement savings. So, boy, that's a scam that I can speak to from the experience of someone close to me.
Wow.
So, you're really correct, Dean. These statistics are really concerning. Are there any kinds of types of accounts or services that are particularly attract this kind of criminal activity?
Yes, and elder fraud losses affect personal savings accounts, checking accounts. You just mentioned retirement account and investments. It can affect virtually every type of account, but some accounts lend themselves to a greater amount of fraud. So it's important to review on a regular basis all activity. And as I've always said, trust absolutely no one. And there's one recent scam that I just saw. And I know, I'll go off the rails a little bit here, but we saw one recently where they're using text messaging and in order to scam somebody into disclosing information. So there's that one. And then, of course, I think people are more familiar with the law enforcement one where somebody purports to have been arrested. They have your, relative, and they're able to use artificial intelligence and voiceover type communications in order to get them to provide funds, which are obviously the arrest never happened. But those are those are a few more scams that I've been seeing as well, Len.
And ironically, Dean, that's another type of scam that my family's been exposed to. A year or two ago, we received a phone call from someone alleging to be an attorney in New Jersey and that our grandson had been arrested for stealing a car or something like that. Now, my grandson was only like 13 years old at the time, so it's like we were a little incredulous to say the least, and thank God we didn't fall for it. But yeah, as soon as you mentioned that type of fraud, we were alarmed at first because we thought, well, I mean, if this is a law enforcement official or attorney calling us, maybe it's real. So tell me, Dean, do you have any parting thoughts or recommendations for our audience before we conclude today's session?
Sure, Len. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I'd review the FinCEN guidance that was published, although it's a little dated back in 2016. It did include recommendations and control suggestions that can be put in place to help identify red flags. In addition, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau website has a designated page for elder financial exploitation. So I would also use this resource because I do think it's a tremendous resource. On a somewhat positive note, the FBI's recovery asset team was able to freeze more than 32 million of the funds associated with the 626 fraud complaints filed by individuals over the age of 60 in 2023. So that, I always like to leave things, I guess, on a little bit of a positive note. And if there's anything we can take away, then I would say that's very good that at least the FBI is able to recover a small portion of what was taken. So be vigilant. That's that's about all I can.
Yes.
That's about the only other thing I can say. And trust no one, Len.
Well, Dean, I knew this was a big issue, but I didn't realize how long it's been an issue and the significance of it today. So this was indeed a great topic for today, and I want to thank you for this important information that you shared with our audience. This is Len Suzio from Geodata Vision.
And this is Dean Stockford from M&M Consulting saying thank you for listening to today's podcast. And please let us know of any additional topics you'd like to hear in future podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Compliance 911 Show. If you like the podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. While you're at it, please give us a like and review to help others find the show. As always, links are in the show notes, and you can always find us online at compliance911show.com. Follow M&M Consulting and GeoData Vision on LinkedIn for all the latest news and information on compliance hot topics.